This video is about the leadership styles, okay? The list I use is from actually the Hay Group, okay? It's called the Hay Group Inventory of Leadership Styles. And the reason I use that list is because it's small. If we look at all the styles that have been outlined throughout the last 50, 60 years, even 100 years, there are enormous numbers of them. So it's a, authentic leader, charismatic leader, transformational leader, transitional leader, North Point leader. I mean, there are really a lot of names, and they don't necessarily describe actually what's happening. So this list, in the inventory of leadership styles, is a short list, and it actually encapsulates or summarizes a lot of the styles that may be out there that are used in different terminology, but this list reflects what they are doing. So the first one, interesting, because I sent you access to this list. It's the first one is called Directive Leadership Style. And actually the most research has been conducted on that leadership style because it's the most used. What it means is there's an emphasis on compliance, okay? And that is what's funny. A lot of people, a lot of leaders in organizations claim they want engagement, but they create compliance through a directive leadership style. So that style is something we're taught from very young. So it means follow directions, do what you're told, speak only when you're spoken to. You may have heard these things in your youth or spoken to other kids. We get that feedback throughout our entire lives through the public education system because it's really designed around the legacy industrial model. So it makes sense that if you see people as cogs in a wheel, you should tell them what to do because they don't know, right? And if they are commodities, they really aren't, very different from each other. So it makes sense that one would use a directive leadership style with that other mindset of the legacy industrial model assumptions. But now that you know the distinctions, and by the way, that most of the research on this style tell us that it doesn't work. It's the least effective leadership style outside of urgent environments. Urgent meaning catastrophes, hospitals, fire departments, war environments. Those environments do best with a directive leadership style. Because if somebody, let's say in a fire emergency, start discussing, okay, what's the better thing to do, it would take more time, and then maybe things could get out of hand. So it's also putting a lot of assumption and a lot of pressure on the leader, assuming the leader would know what to do and would know how to best, implement what's needed. And that's why when leaders use a directive leadership style, they have a lot of systems and structures around them, okay, to support decisions. So they get trained, if this, then that. So they'll know instinctually what to do in an emergency situation. That makes sense. And what's fascinating is most people around the world use a directive leadership style, even though they say they don't. And even though they don't want to. So that is something I'd like to invite in you to explore for yourself. When, if ever, do you use a directive leadership style? And if you don't notice it on an everyday basis, or you haven't received feedback from others, ask yourself, how do you behave when you're stressed? How do you behave when you're angry? Or when you're really have a lot of pressure from a compressed timeline? So usually when we're stressed or when challenging things happen, we default to a certain behavior set. And in most cases, in most people, the default is a directive leadership style. So if that's true about you, that's something you could unplug and kind of peel the onion and start learning new leadership styles so that you can expand your capacity. So basically, optimally, you learn all of these leadership styles so that then you can choose what situation needs which style and which time, right? We talked a lot about context. So depending on the context, you will need to change your leadership style. This may feel overwhelming and you might think, oh my God, when would I ever learn how to do that? But what you can do is stick to your humanity. Your humanity will guide you to choose the best situation in the moment. Plus, you can ask people. If there's a problem with someone or a group of people, say, what do you need to be most effective through this? How can I help you? Or how can we help ourselves? Or what could we do to solve this together? Okay? So that if you ask questions that are out of curiosity, out of the intent to help, out of the intent to help solve issues, that is really helpful. And that will guide you to which leadership style to use. If you have the impression that you need to be the expert, you need to know everything, you need to be perfect, you need to be the one who takes responsibility and therefore the credit, that's problematic for you. And that's going to keep you in managing, and it's going to keep you in a directive leadership style, because the directive leadership style is a function or the natural default of the industrial model assumptions, and that's going to keep you in the current world that's crumbling. If you want to learn how to swim to the other ship that's being designed as we speak, the emerging type of world that's being designed by all of us, whether we realize it or not, the human-centric approach, the human approach, you just connect with people, okay? So the next one is visionary. There's an emphasis on long-term vision. Where are we going? What are we creating? And why? So there's a real connection to the purpose. And that's very engaging, very engaging. And so a visionary leader always keeps the vision alive, holds the vision alive. Because when things get tense, people start to focus on the immediate future, on the details. And sometimes they get caught up in the details, and conflict surfaces, and tension, and mistakes, and frustration. And nothing good comes out of that state of being. But when you keep the vision open, you're saying, okay, let's sit back for a minute. Why are we really doing this? And how can we solve this issue at hand when we think about the vision? People can relax into a bigger picture, making a connection, and therefore really are more effective. A lot of visionary leaders have difficulty in being on earth. So in other words, they're really good at seeing things in the future, envisioning what could be. Like people who work in a human-centric perspective, they can see what can happen because of their experience today and seeing how things are shifting, and they can see it, and when they describe it, it's very inspiring. But some people cannot then ground themselves in today and get through the details. So when you're practicing being a visionary or practicing connecting to a vision you care about, remember to balance yourself, so you'll be able to deal with issues on earth, so to speak, in the daily life of things, and connect to a bigger vision. Now, this visionary leadership is not very much encouraged in today's world because the legacy industrial model is about short-term benefits, right? As the people in Wall Street have become more powerful, especially in this country, but even around the world with, public companies, CEOs have shifted from being strategists and visionaries to people who implement. So they've moved from a bigger picture perspective to more an operational COO, implementing what Wall Street wants to see in order to have growth and spikes in the stock price. So that's an issue here. So if you're visionary, you may be with a lot of people who don't care about a vision, or who maybe not appreciate that, but visionary leaders inspire. And so people tend to follow visionary. And so it's a very exciting type of leadership to use, or style of leadership. The next on this list is affiliative. So it's emphasis on harmony. And of course that's needed sometimes. Let's say you're leading a project and you then notice that there's a lot of conflict or there's a lot of disagreement. Many people perceive that as negative, but conflict and disagreement is actually wonderful if it's based in respect. if it's based on specific types of behavior, like respecting the other person, sharing their own ideas, why they have specific ideas, right? So they may have other data, other experience sets, etc. So affiliative is, how can we be harmonious together? What do we need to do in order to work well together? So that's what an affiliate leader does. Participative is talking about group consensus and generating new ideas. So it's it could be perceived as close to affiliative, but it's basically trying to get at a bigger, sense of, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Do we agree? Can we feel good about moving forward in this direction? Have we solved all the obstacles? Do people feel capable and happy about moving in one direction? And that is getting everyone's participation. Yeah. So that is a really actually exciting leadership style as well. Pace setting is actually the second most common used leadership style, and not quite effective either, as directive isn't. It's always looking at accomplishing tasks. It's a good thing that of course everyone's trying to accomplish tasks at high standards, but high standards mean one thing to one person and one thing to another. It could be one thing if there are 3 priorities, and one thing if there are 1 priority, right? So high standards is a loose, useless term that needs to be determined for everything you do. If you want to lead, and if you want to be clear, and if you want to keep people inspired and engaged, you have to be clear about, what is a success here? What is a failure? Do we all agree on that? Do we all feel capable in terms of skill sets or resources to achieve those standards? Or are we just frustrated? And today, with all the use of layoffs, where people choose to make layoffs and then give each individual 2 jobs, that creates a problem in for the pace setting leaders, because they're trying to manage people and make sure the immediate tasks are done. It doesn't matter really if they're disconnected to the vision, and that's where the problems come. But also, it's like, do we have what we need to get these immediate tasks done at the quality we want today and tomorrow? But sometimes there's a disconnect, like, okay, do X, Y, and Z with half the resources, and it's your problem to figure out how to do it. And if you don't figure out how to do it, it's your lack of skill, and you aren't good. When in fact, that's not the case, right? Because we learned context influences outcomes. Context is always the reason the people in that context succeed or fail. So if you start using that in the way it should be, in other words, you always look at, what about this context is making that outcome obvious? Or what about what's happening in this context to make someone behave that way, or to get us the results we actually don't want? And that is a really proactive and a positive way to solve problems. In today's world, most people want to blame, okay? And they want to kind of find the solution or by getting rid of someone, really. That's what most people do in companies. They'll blame someone, they'll fire them, and they think that problem is solved. And then they get frustrated when they see the problem being recreated with another person. So they assume they hired the wrong person, they'll fire them again and try again, and they're in this infinite loop of hiring and rehiring, hiring, firing, and rehiring, without getting any change being made. So that's one of the problems in today's industrial model. Is like we blame, and then we think the problems are with the people. They're really with the context. So the next and last one on this list is coaching. So the emphasis on personal growth and development. So it's when, instead of solving problems for people, you could help them solve problems for themselves. So you could ask them questions. You can probe into their thinking. You can probe into how they're feeling and what behaviors they're doing that don't feel good to them, but they feel forced. So it's really part of the context, okay? So if the context of the environment you're trying to create includes all of these leadership styles, it's actually more flexible. And so you can move in and out from one style to another. What most people do is they they use one of these like coaching or visionary leadership styles, and then when they get stressed out, they default to a directive leadership style, and then they lose credibility. So most leaders behave that way. They want to be open, participatory, supportive, generous, but when they get stressed out, it moves back to the directive leadership style, and then people say, you see, I can't trust that leader because when they're stressed out, they just tell me what to do, and they don't care what I feel or think or what we talked about when things were going better. And that creates compliance. That creates, conflict. That creates low productivity and low effectiveness. All the things most leaders want to solve, they actually create by their own inability to keep or maintain the same style when they're feeling good and when they're feeling stressed. So I invite you to start looking at yourself. What do you contribute to the results you don't like at work? How do you contribute to the results you do like at work? And then start thinking about it, not in a blaming way, but in a responsibility way. Say, hey, this is what I do, whether I realize it or not, right? And so when we increase our awareness, we can affect change at the triad level, on all levels of thoughts, feeling, and behavior, yeah? So it's not to blame. You look at yourself in a judgment-free awareness, just observe, like you're, on a penthouse or at the Acropolis in Athens in a very high space. And then you observe it with a little bit of distance and say, oh, okay, that's a behavior I can shift. So it makes a distinction between your behavior and who you are. You are someone regardless of your behavior, because your behavior would change with every context, right? So that's a short summary of the leadership styles. If you have any questions, send me them through email or wait until the next time we meet. Okay? Bye-bye.